Welcome again to tonight's session about person-centered planning. My name is Julia Pierce. I have many roles. Tonight I get to be facilitating with Lisa for this session. It's not very long, so we will end before you know it. I'm going to announce when we have about 20 minutes left and the session is completed. The presenter will then have about 10 minutes to wrap up, and we'll move to additional conference business such as prizes and a session evaluation. Yes, we do have prizes. It's wonderful. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lisa. She joined the staff at the Utah Parent Center in 2019. She is currently the Family to Family Network project co-coordinator, and she is focused on person-centered planning, supporting families in DSPD services or on the waiting list. She's an ambassador for charting the life course through the Life Course Nexus, a framework and philosophy for supporting individuals with disabilities in living their version of a good life. This is very exciting. You're going to come to know a bit more about that. She's been an advocate on disability issues for more than 20 years, volunteering in many capacities to improve systems and to be the voice with her son and for her son with autism and intellectual disabilities. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology from Brigham Young University and enjoys spending time with her family, especially with her grandkids. So welcome again tonight. We're going to turn the time over to Lisa. We will ask that you, if you have questions throughout the session, to put those into the chat. We're going to answer most of those questions at the end, but if things come up that need to be answered right away, then I will bring that to the attention of Lisa. Thank you so much for being here. Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you, Julia, for that lovely introduction, and it's great to be working with you again. She was my other co-coordinator until life took her in a different direction. So I'm here and so excited to talk about person-centered planning for everyone. And Julia told you all about me, so I don't need to say any more, but just show you my family. And behind me in the yellow t-shirt is my why. He is the reason I have been a disability advocate for more than 20 years. He is the light and joy of my life and also the bane of my existence, depending on the moment or the day. But it's been a great journey through life with him. So let's talk about hopes and dreams that you had for your child. I would be willing to bet that you had some hopes and dreams, and then maybe when your child received a diagnosis or as they were developing, some of those hopes and dreams changed a little bit based on what you were seeing. What about your loved one, your son or daughter? Do they have their own hopes and dreams? And as a parent, what are we doing to support them in reaching those hopes and dreams? Sometimes as a parent, we have a lot of worries about our kiddos, and those worries may inadvertently keep us from supporting those hopes and dreams, right? We may disable our loved ones more rather than enabling them to reach their dreams. So that's what person-centered planning is all about, is helping our loved ones to reach their version of their best life. So let's talk about person-centered planning and what it is. It is a plan to help a person live their best life. It allows the voice of the person for whom the plan is being written to be the architect of the plan. I don't know about your son or daughter, but I know that my son worked on a lot of goals that I chose for him throughout his life, especially in school, that he didn't have a lot to say over the things that I was having him work on, because as a parent, I knew best and I felt like that was the best thing to do. But as I've learned about person-centered planning, I've realized that it's good for him to share what he wants to do. And sometimes we don't agree on what is the best thing for him, but I've learned to let his voice lead out. For those, you can do person-centered planning for a school year, for a month, for a week, for a lifespan, whatever period of time you want to create a person-centered plan for. And it is for people with disabilities, but really anyone can benefit from a person-centered plan. And I bet many of you already do that for yourselves. Usually in January is when we whip out our plan, right? Our vision for what we want our year to look like. If you are in services for the Division of Services for People with Disabilities, you will yearly participate in a formal person-centered planning process. Now, if any of you have kiddos who have trouble with their communication skills, maybe they have limited communication, you may be tuning out about now and say, oh, this is great for other people's kids, but my son or daughter doesn't talk, so they can't plan their life. But I'm here to tell you that it can happen. You may have to be a little more creative about how it happens. But even if your son or daughter has limited communication skills, they can still participate in person-centered planning. And Julia Pierce and I worked together to create a document with some great ideas on supporting those with limited communication skills. And it is part of the handouts for tonight's presentation. But I just want to talk about a few ways to get input from individuals with communication difficulties. And I have to give 100% of the credit for these ideas to Robert Woodbury, who's the assistive technology specialist in Cache School District. Very knowledgeable about these kinds of things. So obviously, if someone can talk, they can use their voice to tell you what they want in their life, or maybe they use sign language. If someone can say yes or no and give you their input that way, you can get some great information just from a simple yes or no. Or maybe they point, or they can swipe at things or bat at things. Sometimes it's helpful to do a card exchange. I know we did the picture exchange communication system with my son when he was young. And that worked really well for him to be able to tell us what he needed and wanted. And then maybe they could give you their answer by looking at something, right? The eye gaze. And another option is this partner-assisted scanning, which is a way of working with the partner to get a communication message across. And that in and of itself could be a whole training. So we won't go into it too much, but just know that there are a lot of options and ways that you can get input from individuals that have communication difficulties. But like I said, you might need to be a little more creative about it. One problem is that sometimes it's hard to, like written word, they might not be able to read, or words don't mean anything to them. So you can use pictures to get ideas across, or videos. Watch a video about what a certain aspect of adult life looks like so that you can have conversations about it. We used to make photo albums for our son of things that he enjoyed, and then he could see himself with the things that he enjoyed doing and pick from those photos what he wanted to put in his vision for that day. So be creative and don't be afraid to work to communicate and get these ideas from your loved ones of what they want from their life. Specifically tonight, I want to talk about 3 tools to help with person-centered planning. And these come from Charting the Life course, which is a philosophy and framework. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and give you a bit of an overview of it. But the 3 tools I want to talk about tonight are the Life Trajectory Worksheet, the Integrated Support Star, and the Life Domain Vision Tool. And all these tools are available free of charge at lifecoursetools.com. There are also PDF versions of these in your handouts. Julia may be able to throw some in the chat for you, but they're readily available and free. So you can use as many as you want, as often as you want. So let's talk about what Charting the Life course is. It is a philosophy and a framework that was built around person-centered planning, and it was developed for people with disabilities by people with disabilities and their families to help individuals of all abilities and all ages have a voice in thinking about what their good life is, to think about what they wanted to know, what they want to do, to identify those who are going to help them get there, and how to find the supports that they needed, and then discover what it will take to get the life that they want to live. And individuals and families can use these tools to focus on their specific time frame right now, or their current situation, or as I said, you can do a person-centered plan for a lifespan, for a school year, for high school, what it means to transition. So it can be applicable to a lot of different ways. And I'm not telling you that to overwhelm you. Hopefully it's not overwhelming you, but that it's giving you some ideas of how you might use person-centered planning for your son or daughter. The life course framework focuses on all people, and they believe that all people have the right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their own life aspirations. And that they consider people within the context of their families and communities. It's rarely an individual that's all alone, right? They usually have a family, whatever that family might look like to them, and they live in a community that supports them. And so you want to consider all of those aspects of that individual's life. They want you to consider the lifespan of an individual, because what happens in earlier stages of life will impact the outcomes in later stages of life. And they also want you to focus on all different areas of life. They call them life domains, but these are the different areas of life that make your life rich and full and a high quality life. And we're going to talk some more later about what those life domains are. They focus on achieving life outcomes, and they want you to integrate your services and supports throughout your life. So wherever you are in your life, it's not that you need to go to a place to be supported, but that your supports will be with you wherever you are throughout your day. The trajectory helps you think about the direction that you're heading in your life and to get to that vision that you want of a good life. And if your screen looks like my screen, I've got all of the people over the top of the right-hand side of my slide. So you can't see the trajectory boxes, but you can move the pictures over so you can see what the right side of the slide looks like if you are missing that piece. But as I said, the Charting the Life course tools are available for you to download, and there's also a lot of resources, videos, information on the lifecoursetools.com website. So let's talk about what these tools look like. Oh, first we're going to talk about those life domains that I mentioned. So daily life and employment includes such things as school, employment, volunteering, communication routines, and life skills. The community living domain includes housing and living options, home adaptations and modifications, as well as community access and transportation. The social and spirituality life domain is one that we as service providers don't always think about with people with disabilities, but it's very important to continue those friendships and those relationships, to have leisure activities and to have personal networks and a faith community. Healthy living includes not just medical health, but also mental health, behavioral health, nutrition, wellness, and the development of the individual. Safety and security is preparing for those emergencies, for making sure the person is aware of their legal rights and any legal issues. That we talk about guardianship options, and the alternatives to guardianship. And then advocacy and engagement wants you to explore the valued roles in your community. It's not just what can your community do for you, but what can you do for your community? And how can you be the author and architect of your own life and speak up for yourself? So these are all integrated life domains. And sometimes as parents, especially of kids with disabilities, we tend to focus on healthy living and safety and security, right? We want to make sure that our loved ones stay healthy and that they come home to us at the end of the day. And that's very important. But that's not where a rich quality of life comes from. So we want to make sure that you're exploring other life domains in your loved one's life. When you go to a party, the first thing someone asks you is not, how do you stay safe at your house? But what do you do all day? Where do you live? What things do you enjoy doing, right? Those are what we would call cocktail party conversations. And we want to make sure that we consider all of those kinds of areas of life for our loved ones with disabilities. So now we will talk about those wonderful tools. So the life trajectory worksheet comes in two versions, one for exploring and one for planning, and we're going to talk about it. Now, trajectory is a big word, and one that Charting the Life course developers really had a big conversation about, because we try to keep things plain language so that a broader range of people can understand what's being said. But a trajectory is the direction or path that an object will follow to its destination. And when you can explain that concept, when you throw a ball, where it goes, that's the trajectory. And when you can explain that to someone who doesn't maybe understand that word, then they get it, that the trajectory is the path that they're following to their destination. So they purposefully kept the word trajectory in this worksheet because it shows the path that we want our lives to follow so that we'll have our desired outcomes. So this is the trajectory worksheet for exploring, and it's used to facilitate that conversation around what a good life will look like for that individual and picturing that long-term vision. We also will talk about what they don't want in their life. And sometimes that's an easier place to start the conversation, is to think about what don't you want in your life, and then flip that around to what, well, if you don't want that, then what do you want in your life? And then along the trajectory lines, which you can see, this is a fillable PDF. So along the top box, you can put things in there that will lead the individual to the vision of what they want. And then in the box under the trajectory line, you would put the things that might be a barrier or might lead to the person to what they don't want out of their life. And so when you're using this tool, you think about what makes a good life for an individual. And maybe it involves working or hobbies. Does it involve pets, or what do they enjoy doing in their leisure time? So you can think about all the different things that make up a good life and put those in the vision for what I want for a good life. Now the person, there are two versions of this particular tool. So there's one for the individual to fill out for themselves, and then there's a family version. And I think it's important that everybody has a say, but remember that in person-centered planning, it's the person whose opinion matters the most. So you really can talk about the things that you differ on, but be careful not to overwhelm or veto some things that the individual wants to do. Realizing, of course, we've got to keep them safe and healthy, but we want to honor their wishes to the best of our ability. You can use words to fill this out. Maybe you need to use pictures to make it more applicable. If the tool doesn't work for you, you could do slideshows or a poster board or whatever speaks to the individual about getting to that vision of what they want in their life. So that is the trajectory worksheet for exploring. So you can use this to explore different things in a person's life. Now we'll talk about the trajectory worksheet for planning. And you can see it has the boxes of vision of what I want and vision of what I don't want, the same as the exploring trajectory, but this one has extra columns in it, past life experiences and moving forward. And I should tell you, this little circle thing with the box in the middle, you can put the individual's name there, or maybe you're going to do this trajectory worksheet for high school. So you'd put high school there, or you're doing it for 2023. You want to plan 2023. So you can use that to label what this worksheet is for. So as I said, charting the life course wants you to consider past life experiences because those will influence and impact where you are in the future. So in the far left column, you can put the past life experiences that you've had that will lead you to your vision of a good life. And underneath, in the box on the bottom is where you put things that might be a barrier to getting that, or that will lead you to the things you don't want in your life. And then I love this worksheet with that middle column for moving forward, because I'm a big to-do list. I love steps. So this is a great place to put the steps or the things that you need to do to help get to the vision of a good life. Conversely, on the bottom is where you would put the things that you want to avoid doing so that you don't end up where you don't want to be. So think about you and your life. What experiences have you had in your life that will help you get to the vision of what you want, or that might take you away from that vision of what you want? And if you're brave and are willing to share, I'd love you to put things in the chat. But I can tell you that I'm getting close to where I can retire, which is awesome. And I want to have a good quality of life when I no longer am working, and I want to be able to go travel and to visit my grandkids. So in order to do that, I've had fairly good health in the past, so I need to keep doing things that will help me to be healthy in the future. You know, exercise, eat healthy, practice self-care. But traveling with my son can be really hard. And I don't have good options for leaving him. It's like I can't take him and I can't leave him. So I need to work on finding him some good alternatives as he's developing a life for himself, that he can enjoy his life while I can travel and do what I want to do. So that's my steps for moving forward for my vision of what I want in the future. Anyone care to share? And if you don't, that's fine, but I hope you're thinking about it. Okay, I don't think I mentioned that this also comes in a family version and an individual version. Okay, so that as a family, you could fill it out and then your loved one could fill it out. So let me show you my son and his vision of a good life. And I know it's hard to read and it's tiny and I couldn't figure out how to make it bigger. Anyway, but some things that are important to him is he loves movies and he wants to watch them in the movie theater and own them and talk about them all the time. And he wants to be in charge of his life, and he loves working and he wants to have a job, and he also likes to volunteer. Those are things that are important to him. What doesn't he want? He doesn't want to be treated like a little kid. He's an adult and he wants to be treated like one, even though he often acts like a kid, as you can see from some of these pictures. He doesn't like constantly changing routines, and he does not like bossy people. Now, I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, my son is not really verbal. And so you might say, yeah, right, this is what he told you he wants. And you know what? It is what he told us he wants, without using sentences per se, but by communicating in the way he communicates. So I'll take just a minute and share how we found out from him that this is what he wants for his good life. So we used choice cards. We used a skill that my son has, which he can read, and he knows how to sort. So I had his older siblings. He's the youngest of 4. So I had his older siblings and 2 in-laws, and my husband and I filled out a trajectory for my son. And we wrote in there what we thought his vision of a good life was and what he didn't want in his life. And then I took all of those responses and I wrote them down on index cards. And then my son and I sat down and had a discussion about what a good life looks like. And then I showed him some of these options and he sorted them into piles. And this last time we added a new pile, things I want to learn, which he had to say what he wants in his life, what he doesn't want in his life, things he's not sure about, and then things he wants to learn. And so he went through all the cards that I had created for him, and using his way of using his voice, he put things into the categories so that we knew exactly the things that he wanted in his life. And I'll tell you, as a parent, I was overwhelmed at hearing his opinions and the things that he really felt strongly about. Like, he doesn't want to be treated like a little kid. He was adamant about that. And I kind of knew that, but it was fun to have him share that. It was really powerful for both of us to go through this exercise. So I strongly recommend finding a way to let your loved ones share with you what their vision is of a good life. And as I said, we had to use choice cards. That's the way we were able to help him communicate. But there are lots of different ways you can get them to share the things that are important to them. So here's another one, another sample. This is Peyton. He's 13, and this is what his family wrote about him. So his parents want him to have friends and be able to play sports. They don't want him to be not unemployed or in a group home without a choice of where to live. So this is what the family's expectations are for Peyton. And at 13, you know, he should have some say, but parents should be able to help lead that conversation as well. So this will give you an idea. This is an exploring. So, oh, that's my only sample. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the integrated support star. And this is a way of integrating supports and services into your loved one's life. And I should stop and ask any questions thus far about the trajectory. I'm going to be covering 3 tools tonight, so I'm hitting you with a fire hose, and I know that, but I will also show you a bunch of resources at the end that can help you with that. Okay, then we're moving on to the integrated support star. So the integrated support star is a tool that is used to help determine what supports a person already has in their life and what supports they need to have in order to live that inclusive and high quality life that they're planning for themselves. It will show you where it's lacking and where you've got good support. It can show partnerships where collaboration can work well. And as you can see from the graphic on the left, we want that person to be supported in their communities and in their families. So that's what all the stars are for, is that's where the person is getting support when they need it, where they need it, and it's great. So there are 5 different sections to the star. There's personal strengths and assets, and sometimes we don't think to look at what does our loved one do well and what can they do for themselves, right? We want to look there first as a resource. So personal strengths and assets and skills, we want to look at all of those. Relationships, what relationships do we have that can support this person, their family, their neighbors, their school community, their faith community, extended family, that look at all those different relationships. And then another point of the star is eligibility specific supports. And these can be things like Medicaid, food stamps, division of services for people with disabilities, special education services, or other things that you might need to qualify for because of your age or some other requirement to access it. Community resources are things like schools, parks, libraries, places that other people could go, stores, businesses. Maybe you go to the library all the time with your son or daughter, and they're well known there, right? They know the drill. So that becomes a community support. And then technology could be personal technology, environmental technology, or any kind of assistive technology. And assistive technology, which there is a workshop at 8 on assistive technology, but that can be anything from high-tech items to low-tech, schedule boards and task lists. So those would be technology. And when you're filling out an integrated support star, don't worry so much about where you put the item, like is this iPad technology or a personal asset, right? It could be either place. Just make sure it gets on your star so that you're thinking about the things that can support your loved one. And that's kind of how you use it. So you might think about, and I'll go through an example on how to use the integrated support star. You can use pictures and icons of the different things. And some people like to do the trajectory and then think, okay, here's the vision of our good life. So what supports do we have that can help us reach that vision of a good life? And then you go through personal strengths, relationships, eligibility specific, community, technology. What supports do we have to get them there? You can use it for implementation of goals. And one example I give here is if you're trying to teach your loved one how to cross the street. Okay, so that's the goal. Goal is crossing the street. So what are the personal strengths and assets that can help this person cross the street? Well, they know how to walk. They know how to tell the difference between that stop hand and the walking person. They know how to push the button and they have the strength to push the button. So those are personal strengths and assets. Relationships. So maybe grandma lives across the street and they can practice going across the street to grandma's house, or a good friend lives across the street that you can practice street crossing with, or loved ones that will help cross the street with them, right? Eligibility specific. So if they're receiving, they have staff paid staff or paraprofessionals at school could help practice crossing the street. Community resources, maybe they need to practice crossing the street to go to a park or to go get a Slurpee. Maybe I live between two schools, and so there are crossing guards at those intersections during certain times of the day. So we could take advantage of the crossing guards to help cross the street. And technology, maybe they've got using a phone app that helps them to walk a certain path and help cross the street, or use their phone to show the steps of crossing the street. First you push the button, then you wait for the hand, you know, whatever the steps are. Or you use YouTube videos to watch how to safely cross the street, or you use the Florio virtual reality training that the Utah Parent Center has access to. Excuse me, that's one that we worked on there, was how to cross the street using virtual reality. So that's an example of how to use the STAR to figure out the supports that you need. And another great way to use the STAR is to think about what supports you have now and what supports you need. So you divide each section in half with now and need, or you can divide into what we have now and what will we need in the future. For example, I would do this for retirement, right? What things do I have now? What might I need in the future when I am retired? Splitting these sections has become so popular that there's actually a split STAR option on the Life Course Tools website that you can download, and it already has the splits for you. So you can go through and use this. Now, we all tend to do these organizational things anyway, but I love this tool because it gives you a way to use it that's visual. You can use it for problem solving. Businesses use it and organizations use it for, if you're going to fundraise, right? What a nonprofit can use it for fundraising and think about, okay, what personal strengths do we have? What relationships do we have that can help us with this fundraising goal, and go through the aspects of the STAR. And it can really show you where you are lacking and where you are really strong, and where the places that you need to develop those areas of resource. So, I was going to show you a sample. So the Charting the Life course has these, they're called starter stars. That's hard to say fast. So it's a starter star, and it gives you some ideas to think about for filling out a STAR on your own. For example, this one is for respite, because that is an issue that a lot of parents wish they had a respite, right? You're on the waiting list for services and all you need is just a little bit of respite. So this starter star can help you to think about other options besides that eligibility piece, right? We're waiting on the eligibility piece, but what else do we have that can help us get those respite services? So again, you can go through each of these areas, and some may be applicable to you and some may not. Just skip that, but it will help you think and hopefully trigger some ideas to help you think about resources you do have access to that could provide some respite help, or that you could work on. For example, my son really would like to stay home by himself, which we're not there yet. So what are things that we can do to get him to that point? Can I teach him how to FaceTime? Can I teach him how to call 911 if there's an emergency, right? What does that look like for him to be home alone? So it helps me have some ideas of goals to work on with him. So this tool number 2 is the sample integrated support STAR. Any questions about the STAR before I move on to the third tool?
Lisa, I just can't see the screen. Remind me of the green and the dark blue on the bottom.
So green is eligibility specific, and the blue is community. And I'm glad that you asked about that, because if you've noticed, these are really colorful, and they will always be, anything that's pink is always going to be technology. Anything that's this kind of greenish color is always going to refer to the individual themselves. The purpley blue is relationships. The really yucky green is eligibility specific, right? So anytime you see these, you'll know that that's what is being talked about in that particular area.
Appreciate that. And then does the star, those colors match the first section? That's step one. Okay.
The trajectory doesn't have the colors on it per se, but as you read through things or you look at the icons, and in other tools, you will see these colors repeated. So you get to know, okay, this means this, or that means, you know, community. Perfect. So you'll start to recognize that. Yeah. Thank you for your questions. Okay, deep breath, here we go. What's my time? All right, the Life Domain Vision tool. This tool is one that helps you think about all those 6 life domain areas. And again, if your little strip of people is covering up the life domain areas and you want to read them, just grab it with your mouse and move it to the other side of your screen, or you can even pop it to the bottom or the top, if that helps you. So the 6 areas: daily life and employment, community living, social and spirituality, healthy living, safety and security, and advocacy and engagement. So those 6 life domain areas. So here's what the tool looks like if you were to chop it in half and lay it side by side, because it's a long, you know, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So to put it on a screen that goes the other direction, that's landscape, we chopped it in half for you. But you can see that all of the life domains are represented. And again, these icons will always be shown whenever they're talking about these particular life domains. And it also adds on 2 additional areas. One is supports for family. And that's what that little white in the middle with the little blue bubble people around it, that represents the individual with their family around them. So when you see that icon, think of individuals in the context of their families. So we want to think about what supports do the family need? And then of course, there's our integrated support star to help us think about what supports and services an individual needs. So when you go through this tool, you would talk about daily life and employment, and what does that mean? What does that look like? And there are some prompt questions there, which may or may not be applicable to your loved one, but they can get you thinking so that you can ask questions that might be a little more appropriate to their situation. And then there's the column that has my vision for the future. And so your loved one can tell you what their vision is for each of these areas. And then there's a priority column, which I love because sometimes we feel like we have to do everything all at once. And that can be very overwhelming to everyone. So when you have a priority, you can decide, okay, right now we're going to just work on this one area. And make that the high priority, or you could have 2 high priority areas, or 1, 2, and 3, however you want to grade things. Lisa? Another beautiful thing about this tool is that it is yours to use as you see fit. So if you don't want to fill out the whole thing, don't. It's not a test. It's a tool for you to use. And so you can work on a couple of things and then call it good, or work on one area and then come back next week and talk about the next area. So however it will work for you is how you should use this tool. However it will be most beneficial for you. Sometimes it's helpful for families to fill it out and then for the person to fill it out, and then you can talk about where you are the same and where you are different. And sometimes it's I've heard a few stories about how individuals haven't thought their families wanted them to do certain things, and instead, thank you, Julia, as they looked at their life domain vision tools and compared them, it was like, oh, we really do want the same thing. We do really want you to be able to be independent and live on your own. We just have these worries as mom and dad, right? So it can be very helpful to have these conversations. So let's look at a sample tool. So this is one that a sister filled out for her sister. And you can see she filled out every box. And that's okay because that's what worked for her. And her highest priority is for her sister to find a group of friends that enjoy similar themes, like a horseback riding group or a Bible study group. And then she wants her sister to learn about her history, and then also get her assistance with her medical needs. So you can see that this is one way that this family used this tool. Some people like to use the Life Domain Vision tool and then transfer that into the trajectory worksheet, because the Domain Vision tool has more concrete areas to think about. And some people don't use this and just use the trajectory, or other people just use this and not the trajectory. So again, whatever works for you is the right thing to do. Oh, I should say across the top, these cute little icons are that lifespan. So again, be thinking about the lifespan of an individual. I'm going to show you an excerpt of another tool. And I love this one because this was a mom and dad that did it with their 12-year-old son. And they put both their responses on the same sheet, which I thought was brilliant. So the sons is the first line, and that's the I statement. And then the parents are the we statement. So you can see how both of them felt about things. And the way that they were able to fill this tool out with him was really conversations. They did the tool in a week. It was a homework assignment. And so they took a day on each topic to talk about it, you know, to and from school as they were driving, and then at the dinner table, and just kind of having these conversations about, well, what would you like to do? And what do you think you want to, where do you think you want to live? I love that he wants to live where his favorite football teams play and yet live with his parents. So if his parents live here in Utah, good luck with that, unless his favorite football teams are college teams, right? And mom and dad want to explore a basement apartment. And I think, you know, it's great to see both of those perspectives on here. Let me show you another page of theirs. Citizenship and advocacy was what advocacy and engagement was in a previous iteration of these tools. But the parents are really concerned because he's an only child and he will need some care if something happens to them. And so that's their highest priority, is making sure that he is connected, that he will be safe, and that he has people around him who will care about him if and when they are no longer able to take care of him. So that helps them to prioritize what's important to them, so they can be working on that and get that resolved before they can handle maybe finding him a basement apartment or building that in their basement, right? They can prioritize that. So have you thought about which life domain area is the most important for you right now and for your loved one? Like if you were filling this out right now, where might you focus your time and energy?
I'm an educator, so I do not have a child that I would need to fill this out for, but I can tell you that most of my parents, housing is a big one, and where their child is going to live, and what resources they have for those goals.
Yeah, housing is big, and daily life. When that tragic day when the school bus does not come and you have to figure out now what, that daily life piece becomes very different when schooling ends. And so those at transition age can be very important to think about. Julia.
There is a question asking if you can show all of the areas again.
I have the technology, I can. There.
Thank you. Was there a follow-up question after that is shown? Amy, do you have a follow-up question about that?
I just wanted to see them again, because as she's asking what is the most important in our lives right now, I was like, well, I don't remember. I mean, always comes to my mind is the like employment, daily life, because that's what's right in front of my brain at the moment.
Right.
But I just wanted to see what the other options were. So thank you.
Yes. And Amy, that was wise because, you know, that was 3 slides ago. So who could remember what transpired 3 slides
Maybe
ago?
somebody else, but definitely not me.
I'd forgotten. So there you go. And again, as parents, we tend to focus on that safety and security piece and that healthy living piece, which is important, very important, but don't forget about this well-rounded life. If they're safe and healthy, but they don't have a good quality of life, we haven't done them any favors. So we want to focus on making sure they're connected to their communities, to their families, and
Lisa,
to something meaningful.
I loved what you said about the possibility of using this tool first and then doing the trajectory. Because even before you said that, I was thinking, I love this. This would be so much better for my son because it's so much more concrete.
Right.
It's asking very specific questions. If I were to just put the trajectory in front of him first, it would just be so overwhelming.
Right.
So that was a really great point. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a checkbox kind of person, so I like the structure of the domain vision tool for sure. That works well. So I've told you about all these tools. I've told you about creating a person-centered plan. Now let's talk about what do you do with this person-centered plan? With this smiley picture. Okay, you can use a person-centered plan to create goals and steps to help the person reach their vision. And again, I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I'm just trying to give you some ticklers, right, of directions you could go. And consider where your loved one wants to be in a few years. So what do we need to do now to get them there in a few years? And you might be filling out the tool for a current period of time, but consider those past experience. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are not a life sentence, it's a life lesson. And sometimes when our loved ones do something that's scary or dangerous, then it's like, okay, you can never touch a knife again because you used it to chase your sister with, right? But can we teach them appropriate use of some things? And I just threw that out. Sorry, that's a terrifying example. I'm just saying, don't make it a life sentence. If your loved one is working toward a goal, now none of us will have a perfectly straight and smooth trajectory. There's going to be ups and downs, but if someone is visual and can see this is the goal I'm working towards, and if I make this decision, it's going to take me down, then that can be a great reminder. You can also use trajectory or the vision tool or the support star to remind or to train caregivers on how to interact with your loved one, because every interaction should lead them towards that vision of a good life that they want. Remember, you can plan a specific time frame, any period of time. You could focus a plan on one area and one life domain, right? What's the one that's most important right now? And I love this one, and especially Elizabeth as an educator, families can come to you with their trajectory and say, okay, this is our vision. How can we create an IEP that will support this vision of a good life? So that's just a few of the ways to use a person-centered plan. And I want to make sure you have these resources because, as I said, I hit you with a fire hose of information. But at the Utah Parent Center's website, we do have a book on Introduction to Person-Centered Planning in our Person-Centered Planning resources area. Of course, life course tools. And then I wanted to mention too that the Division of Services for People with Disabilities is getting a very robust person-centered planning reservoir on their website that has got videos and training and a lot of good information there too. So remember that we haven't just thrown you to the wolves by giving you these ideas, and you're always welcome to contact me at the Parent Center. I know we are done. So theoretically questions, but here's my contact information if you need that. And then are there other questions, or Julia, where are we at?
Lisa, I have a quick question, if you don't mind. Are these available in Spanish for Spanish-speaking families?
Yes, they are on the Life Course Tools website. Good
Wonderful.
question.
Thank you. And that was a very good training. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. And Howard, yes, you won, you lucky ducky.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Any other
Right.
questions? We have Lisa, the ambassador of Charting the Life course.
Wearing
I
my
know she
sash.
has a sash and a crown that we place on her.
And thank you to the Davis County Family to Family Network for sponsoring this. Family to Family Network is a support group for families run by parents. And they meet every month on the second Thursday of the month. I'm like, what night is this? So you'll have to check out their information on the Parent Center website.